Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So today it's going to be more of an open mic conversation. We really want people here that are a part of this, whether it be Zoom or in person, to have some input with it. Austin's going to take it away. For those of you that don't know, this is Austin McCark. He's a member of our Agent Leadership Council, and he is phenomenal on the phones, especially calling for listings. So I think he's going to have some great input for you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll have mics and we'll be running, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, kick it away.
All right. So obviously the market is shifting. So I'm starting to see just some things change in pricing of homes. We're seeing price drops because months, 2, 3 months ago, people were, thinking they could sell for a lot more because there was less inventory then. We're starting to see these $5, $10, $15, $20,000 price drops. Is that something that you guys are also experiencing? So with with the market shifting right now, it's like super crucial for us to be pricing these properties appropriately. Because if we still price things appropriately, they still get multiple offers. We just have to price them right. And so with a lot of these sellers, it's really important that we're setting these expectations, I think, with them that, hey, we can try at this price point and see what activity we get. And if we don't get any activity, we're going to have to look at doing a price reduction because everybody's trying to overprice their properties right now. Perfect. We're done. I was like, whatever you need. That's funny. But we were seeing people thinking they could get these unrealistic numbers because back in the summer they could, because we were down to like 500 listings. Now we're at 1,000, close to it. So we're starting to see, more competition for listings. So they're not getting 17, 18 offers. Everybody else seeing that? How are you pricing properties right now, Liliana?
Well, they do want to go higher. But I do explain to them that if it doesn't sell in 1 week, we reduce it, and then you run a chance that the real buyers are not going to be there anymore. And if it stays on the market so longer, they will think that is. I have one right now that we price it high, and I call him 2 weeks after we listed it, and I reduced it for 10,000. I should have pushed for 20 because it's still in the market. So I did an offer yesterday in a patio home.
Yeah.
And they had a price really cheap. And the patio home was amazing. My client wanted it. I said, okay, if you want it, how much you are willing to spend. She wrote the offer for 3,000 over asking price. He sold for 15,000 over asking price.
So what is that conversation going to look like when you have to go back to your client about reducing it more when you said it should have been a lot less?
Well, we're risking it that people think that there's something wrong. It's a really old house. It's super cute. It'd be great for an investor. Actually, I had an appointment today to show it to an investor. He got sick. That is the risk that we have, that if we don't do it quick and it stays in the market for much longer, it's going to be worse.
Right. Because
don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree because, we're so used to, for the past year, because I mean, even in 2020, properties are selling in 1 or 2 days, sometimes quicker. We were so used to seeing, and buyers are used to seeing it too, that these homes were selling so quickly that if the home doesn't move within a reasonable amount of time, they start to question what's going on with the house. Like, is there, internally something wrong? Is the roof bad? They start to question those things. So it makes the listing look bad when it's overpriced because people question something wrong. And that hurts because the home's going to end up selling for less later on. Whereas if you just price it right the first time, it's going to move a lot quicker.
So walk us through the conversation with your clients about setting the right expectations at the beginning.
Sure. So when I go to a listing appointment, price is, one of the first things that we discuss because we have to make sure we're in agreement with what's realistic. Because like as an agent too, it makes me look bad if I can't get their house sold. So like it's crucial for me to make sure I'm giving them the right information. So I always do a line graph for my sellers. And do I have a marker actually? So based on like what the CNA every seller's level of motivation to sell is different. There are some people that they have to sell tomorrow because they need money or they've got a job relocation. There are some people who are just selling because like, if I can make $150,000 on the sale, great. If not, then we'll just take it off the market. So I use this system, right? Because then it wastes our money on photos and marketing. Exactly. Exactly. So I use this as a way to price my properties, and it allows the seller to put themselves where they want to be. Instead of me saying we should be at this price point, I'm going to work with you. Themselves where they want to be at. Say I think the house is probably worth like $230,000. I typically like to put things right below that market value mark because it creates a lot more interest. So if I think the property is worth like, that's right where I think it should be, I tell them this is where we need to be. Activity, I think that this is where it will sell. I think we'll be okay here. Tomorrow, because locate for your job, want to get multiple offers on the property and just get this done and taken care of and not worry about having showings for a week or 2 weeks. You just want to get done. I think we need to price it here. Price it here. We can create a lot of interest for offers because everybody, it's all about perception. Price cheaply, people are going to look at it and they're going to, flock to it. So I'll say this is where we need to be if we need to sell it tomorrow. I think we'll sell, within a week, 2. Right? If you want to hire or not sell and risk it not appraising, so yeah, 250, 225, 235, 250. There's some people that have a 225 or a 235 house. Add 10 grand in value to the house. So if option of saying, hey, I want to get it sold, this is when I get multiple offers, get a lot of activity, let's be here. Think we can get this price? If offer in a week, we can drop down to this. Buyer, not sell. So I set that expectation from the beginning with people because it's all about expectations when we're talking to the sellers. Don't set the right time frames or the right expectations on, hey, if we price this appropriately, we should be be able done in a week. Want to drag this out? I mean, you can price it higher. I just can't guarantee I'm going to get. Those are expectations that I set up, with, I need to understand their motivation. sometimes you can get them to drop that price.
My neighbor just sold for 250, so I'm not taking anything less than 250. 1,500 square feet. I don't know. Billy, how big is your house? It's about the same. I think it's the same layout, same square footage.
Do they have any other updates?
I don't know. I
Well,
just know that it's 2 houses from me, and I saw that it went pending at 250.
let me pull it up on the computer real quick. Let's compare the two. Their house is 1,800 square foot.
Oh.
Also got granite countertops. Got Formica, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some key differences.
So how do you tell somebody nicely that, sorry, your house is not as nice as your neighbors? You know what I mean? Because you don't want to be like, well,
Exactly. So on the computer, I have them compare. So I'll literally, and I do point out those obvious things because some people, and it's not that they're stupid or that they don't know or that they don't realize, but some people truly don't realize that granite can make a difference in the price point of a house. Because yes, your house may be super clean and well maintained and efficient, but people will pay more to have the granite countertops in the hardwood or luxury vinyl plank flooring versus something that's got the cheaper laminate. And I'm open dialogue with them. I show them the differences, but they point it out themselves because they see, oh, have granite. Okay, granite for that your kitchen's going to cost about $4,000. So when we start putting those things in perspective, it makes a difference in that dialogue because then they can talk themselves down instead of talking themselves up.
For those that are new in the room, what are the higher upgrades you look for and you have those conversations? So you mentioned granite countertops, LVP, what else?
So depending on the price point of the house also determines what I'm looking for. Because pricing a $130,000 to $150,000 house is a lot different than pricing like $400,000 and $600,000 house. Because there are like subtle key differences from the 400 to 600 price point and like the 150 to 250 price point. So there's certain things that I'm looking for. Typically upgraded flooring is one thing that I look for a lot because most people do not want to put in new flooring. Some will. Most want something that's move-in ready. So I look for good flooring, good condition flooring. Also something that's perceived value. That out there, newer heating and air is always big on. The crown molding, the molding type of work that's in the house, type of appliances that they have in the house. Have a $500 electric stove, or you could have a $6,000 woof range price point of the house. So looking at like those. Granite countertops, marble countertops, quartz countertops, bathroom finishes. And the thing that I think helps increase value too is if everything's consistent because it's aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I know that I can probably draw more money property if the bathroom countertops, kitchen countertops, any countered surface is the same material. Because people don't want a hodgepodge mix. Buy it, yes, they will. But anytime I've had a house that's like consistent color scheme, countertops, cabinets, it always brings, just like the one you showed, Kanata.
What do you say whenever they say, well, then I'm just going to put granite in all my house and then sell it?
That's great. If you want to put in granite and spend the time and the money to do so, that's great. But at the end of the day, when we run the numbers on that, does it make financial sense? Time that it's going to take to do that. Because you told me you wanted to be in Florida with your family by December 31st. Get somebody in that's going to do Granite, it may take them a month. And then if we go up on the market, it may take us 45 days to close. That's going to put us into January. Does it make more sense to sell now and goals met, or do we need to put that money in there, see if we can push it? What makes more sense for you? At the end of the day, I think it's more logical and financial sense to sell at this price point now. Because some people do think that, but then they don't take into account, like right now, it's so hard to find people to even do the work.
Okay, so your numbers up there, are those kind of just intuition that you're using? When I do the math, it looks like 5 to 6% either way. Is that really a good gauge? So if you were doing a $300,000 CMA, is 5 to 6% down and 5 to 6% up a good gauge for us, or?
On the seller, because like there's been homes I've gone to that I'm like, this is a 250 all day long, and they're like, it's a
Right.
and so we're way off
Yeah.
at that point. And so, and it does happen, but typically, like, I do see, people in that 5 to 10%.
I mean, that's a good place to have the conversation. And I'll go back one more step.
Absolutely.
Before you sit down with your consultation, do you find out what they're looking for, or do you go into that blind?
Like in terms
The
of
amount that they
price,
would like? Mm-hmm.
I don't ask,
Okay.
because for me, if I set the price wrong, they will tell me.
Okay.
But then that gives me the opportunity
To
for
dig
when it
why.
doesn't sell
Okay.
at that price. My original opinion was this. But it's a subtle, like,
Right,
I
right.
told you so. So it's subtle.
So you
But
would
yeah,
rather go into it blind and just, this is where I think we should be. Do you give like all three concepts of this on the graph, or?
on the conversation
So
with
just
the
wait to
seller.
see what the conversation takes you?
It does, because
Okay.
if a seller is giving me pushback on the price, then I have to defend my case. Whether they listen to me or not is up to them.
Okay.
Realistically, I'm still going to take the listing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no to it unless we're like $500,000 apart.
Right.
Which is not going to happen.
But
too
you've got a
often.
planned conversation sort of that gets you going there, and then,
Exactly.
no, I want 325. All right, baby, let's put it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because for what the market is right now, somebody could come
Right.
in and take it.
For sure.
We just don't know. Like, but that's the thing. If it's priced right, we will get offers still.
Okay, good.
It may not be the same 5, 6, 7, 8 offers we were experiencing, but we'll still get 2 or 3, which gives us more leverage. They'll get the price up some.
So when you say you're going to go with their price of whatever they suggest, do you set the expectation if it doesn't sell, then we'll have this other conversation, or do you wait for a little bit before you have that conversation?
So the conversation, like before I will sign paperwork with on price, I do have to protect myself too, because I know, like, on average, every listing I take with the photos, videos, paying the TC, it's almost $1,000 in expense per listing. And then if there's any special marketing that needs to be done on it, any of copies that are in color, there's a lot that adds to that. So I will tell them, look, I'm investing my own money in this, and I'm very honest with them. We're going into business together when I'm helping you sell your house. So I'm going to protect myself too, just like you should protect yourself. If we don't see the activity that you guys are expecting or wanting, I think within a week, we should look at price reduction. or within 10 showings. Because there are enough buyers out there right now still that you can get even in the higher price point. So guys, if we don't see the activity or any offers within, the first 10 showings or week to on the market, depending on the price point, at that time, we need to discuss some type of price drop. Sometimes they're open to it. Typically, been on for an extended period of time, offers are going to be lower. So I'm always upfront and tell them it's going to make more, price it right from the beginning on that asking price.
Let's talk about the one listing appointment approach and the two listing appointment approach. So some people will go out and they'll have the whole listing appointment right there. Some people will go out, look at the house, and then come back with the price after. What is your experience and what do you do?
So I go on one listing appointment. I don't think there is a right or a wrong approach because everybody does things differently. I know Evan Deshawn goes twice. For me, and the type of clients that I work with, I have to go drive over there twice. That's more time out of my day. I can do more listing appointments if I'm not going. So I go on one, I show up, I look at the house, and I don't talk about price. I don't talk about any. I go in and I just take a look at everything because I want to get to understand the full condition of the property. And I'll just bring up casual conversation too, because this is my time to build rapport. Because a lot of these people that I'm meeting, this is the first time I'm meeting them. They don't know who I am and I don't know who they are either. So first 30 minutes of my appointment, I'm just going through building rapport, talking about the photos they've got on the wall, getting as much of that rapport built as I can. Then we sit down and I start talking about their motivation. Why are you guys wanting to sell it? Okay. Conversation, start to find out motivation, what they're kind of expecting out of a realtor if they're looking to hire one, and then how can I give you value? Because if I can provide enough value to somebody, it's not going to take 2 appointments. Are there people that are harder to convert that I am going to have to probably meet with twice? Yeah. My typical approach is 1 appointment, just I can back end to provide them as much value as I possibly can. Price what their expectations are. Great. How somebody wants to approach it from their business.
Something that I have done that has worked is whenever they are setting a price and they're going to be difficult, I'll take my computer and I say, let's do the CMA together.
Yeah.
And make him choose the properties and say, well, not that kitchen doesn't have granite.
Exactly.
And so it is kind of their decision. So they like that. It's worked.
Because at the end of the day, we cannot force people to sell at a certain price. Right. Just like we can't force people to make repairs, we can't force people to buy houses. If we could, our jobs would be a lot. Some people have to visualize the differences. Some people just want to look at the numbers. Depends on how your listing appointment, how they perceive information. Some people just want the numbers. They don't care about anything else. They want the numbers. Some people are on visual side of it and they want direct comparisons. And then when they realize there's differences, they become more. I think it's a great way to do it.
So I have 2 questions. Number one, I found it really interesting to hear you say that, regardless of where they want to be with the price, in most situations, you're going to work with them and take that. Recently, just because I walked away from one because we couldn't come to, I literally told them I won't list their property for that amount because I don't think that it would sell. in the time frame that they would, in any type of time frame at all whatsoever. When I do my listing presentations, I put it in a PowerPoint form. I have, a slideshow prepared where I've pulled 5 to 7 different comps. So tell me a little bit about how you have that conversation, or what you do to set those expectations on those ones that you take, even though it's above and beyond what you think they can get. And then also, Austin, can you talk me through your process when you're doing the CMA with different homes and comparable homes, and specifically multifamily properties, and what you deduct and take versus a duplex that's all brick versus a duplex that's mostly brick with some siding behind it? Like, where do you take away how much do you take off for the differences in those kind of things?
Question, just so that I allowed to take it. So the first question, you're okay. I do too. So your first question was, what is my conversation and expectations when I take a listing at a higher price?
Yeah, at a higher price. Whenever you don't think that you can sell it at that price, what does that sound like? What does that look like?
Sure. Okay. So if I'm taking a listing that is, I know, probably overpriced, done this. That visual foremost. Tomorrow, what I think we can get, what we might not sell at. I will always show. I tell them, look, we are going on at a higher price point. Willing to try it, but at the end of the day, what our comparables show us is that it will not. We can put whatever price we want to on whatever you've got. But when the appraisers come in, comparables for your house, it's probably not going to sell or appraise, excuse me, because this is what the comps show. So if there's something that I am missing about your home that you feel gives it this additional value, let me know what that is so I can take that into consideration, because if I'm wrong, I want to know what I'm missing. But from what I can see, 5 homes are pretty comparable to yours. So this is what the appraiser is going to use. Want to put it at this price? We'll see if we get a cash offer. It might happen. But realistically, if in a week or 10 showings, at 2 weeks, 10 showings, we're not seeing that activity and we're not seeing any offers, the market is telling us that the price is too high. So it's always because the market really, there's 3 things that determine the sale of the home: price, condition, 4. Price, condition, location, and the market. There's those 4 things that determine the sale of a home: price, condition, location. We can control the price, sometimes control the condition. If we've maintained our houses, it's going to be in good condition. We cannot control the location, and we cannot control the market. So if we price it appropriately for what the market indicates and what's appropriate for your condition and your location, it will sell. Have to take those 4 things into consideration when we price it. So did that answer your question on that?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to make sure, because sellers do want to push prices right now. I mean, I sold a house to somebody a year ago, and they just texted me this morning because their neighbor's house paid $165. Neighbor's house went up for $200. Okay.
I get it.
Have you done any upgrades to the house? We added a above ground pool.
Okay.
So you damaged the grass.
But the yard is not as big as it once was. Got it.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, it's in a great location, and we might be able to get it. I mean, it's a big might, because there's not a lot of competition for it. And so, but I'm going to have that expectation conversation with them of, hey, these are the upgrades that you've done. This is what you have bought it for. This is the time that's passed. This is what I realistically think the market will tell us it will sell for. We're at. might get a little bit above what I'm predicting, you know? But if we price at where you're at, I don't know if we'll get the activity that we need to get an offer that makes sense.
Gotcha. So to simplify the second part of my question, what are the key details that you look at whenever you're doing the CMA on the property from a residential standpoint versus a multifamily or investment standpoint?
So on a residential side of things, when I'm doing the CMA process, there's the main thing I'm looking at is square footage. The high cost replacement items, how new are those? Because those are the things that everybody, buyer's perspective.
Are you talking like furnace?
Yep.
And foundation?
Furnace, roof, hot water heater, because hot water heaters are $500-600. But most people don't want to spend $500-600 right as they move into a house. So they want to know the age of the hot water heater too. If I look at those things, condition of the property, finishes, hardware that they've got on the drawers. I take it into consideration what the backyard is like, because that is going to make a difference. Like if a yard is well maintained, I'm justifying the value because it's well maintained.
Is an above ground pool an asset or a liability? Does that add value or take it away?
Liability.
Okay.
Because I mean, even an in-ground pool only adds like, what is it, 4% of value, or what was it?
I've talked to multiple appraisers and there really isn't a value they can assign
Right.
to an in-ground pool. It depends on the price point, but an average answer I got was about $20,000 on an in-ground pool.
Right, that's what it was, $20,000.
But of course, if you have $1 million listing, it's going to be more. But from what I've heard, it adds more of a liability and it limits your number of buyers. And a pool, I'm probably going off topic, but I just did a bunch of research on this. Yeah. So a pool, if you have a client that's wanting to build a pool, worst investment, almost like purchasing a car. You're never gonna get that money back ever. So it would almost be smarter to purchase a house with an in-ground pool than to get one installed.
In terms of other things that I look at too, I'm looking at like how big the bedrooms are. All of these things I'm taking into consideration because appraisers are just like people. It's perceived value. Appraisers are just like buyers, excuse me. It's perceived. The home makes a good impression on the appraiser. I know that we can push that market price just a little bit. But the appraiser is seeing the condition of the house, things like that. In terms of other things that I look at, the school district, the higher price point, that's a big indicator as well, because if I don't know a whole lot about a house necessarily, I'll look at the school district. Average is polling and then narrow down.
Let me piggyback onto that. So you say school district, then neighborhood. So how far out do you start? And do you really start at the whole school district and then narrow down to the neighborhood? Do you start at the neighborhood and kind of go out depending on
So-
what you have?
Within this, I will typically start like a mile out. If I'm going on a listing appointment, I know that they're not going to necessarily have direct comparables. Like some people, what I'm saying is some people will pull a house as a comparable that's a mile. I want to just be educated on what they're probably looking at, because then it prepares me for what type of conversation I'm going to have. So if they don't bring them up to me, I've just done the research and now I know more about that area. But if they do bring it up to me, now I know. So I start about a mile out on the neighborhood, because some neighborhoods just don't have a lot of comparables. So by starting a mile out, I can kind of see where most of the activity in the solds have been. And then that gives me kind of an indicator of where I can, you know, mile out. If there's a bunch of them, I'll zoom in quite a bit more, half mile, and then just keep narrowing it down until I can pull 5 or 6 that makes sense.
And since we've been talking about how there's this shift that's going on, how far back are you going now? Because if you go a year back, it seems like to me that that's not as accurate as what, 6 months ago would have been. And even 3 months ago doesn't really seem like it's as accurate as what it is today. So where are you kind of in the CMAs that you're doing today on residential properties, where are you kind of landing in that? And are you adjusting for a percentage off of what you feel like the market is at currently, based off where they were 3 months ago, or how does that work with you?
So right now, what I've been doing is I've been looking at how many homes are a direct competitor and how many of those are our competitor right now. Because if I've got a house that does not have a lot of competition, but 6 months ago, one sold for not been anything else pop up that's comparable, I may bump the price up to 325 just to see like if it's something that we can get, because our job as a listing agent is to. So I'll look and see like, okay, this one sold, 6 months ago. Really good comparable, but nothing else has come up for sale. I see there's a lot of agents online asking for something like this. Maybe we could push that price just a little bit. Because again, the market dictates that. So if I see there's a huge buyer need for a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home on East Side Springfield for 325, up to 325 or even 350, last comparable that's similar price, because the demand is there. Doesn't mean that it will appraise, not necessarily. And that's a conversation that I have to have with them, is like, this is our closest comparable, this is sold for, this is where we're at. So we have to be realistic with that expectation too. But in terms of like taking a percentage off or some like math equation that I use for it, there's not. I just really kind of go off of my gut feeling too. Is based on what the market is telling me, I'm going to price it. If we see no competition, we can go higher. If there are 3 other homes that are active that have been on the market for 5, 6, 7 days, price point. That help? Okay. I'm going to be honest with you, from a multifamily perspective, I don't sell a lot of multifamily properties, truthfully. So I don't feel like I'm educated enough to really direct you in a solid answer on that. And so I just don't want to lead you down the wrong path. You can put $1 million on it. I'm sure it'll sell. But like I've sold duplexes and things like that, smaller multifamily properties, and it's pretty much the same as it would be for a residential. Yeah. And right now, I mean, duplexes are super hard to find. Most of these sales for duplexes are happening off market. So it is a little bit harder to pull some comparables for multifamily properties like that, because they do happen off market. And a lot of times too, some of these investors are just selling to each other in certain cases. There's a lot of that because, I mean, they know what each other's got. And if there's always a buyer for something. There's a lot of people trading stuff too, which makes it hard to price stuff. Not really trading, but.
And right now it's happening a lot because 1031 rules may be changing next year. So a lot of them are trying to do it now before that happens. Yep, before that happens.
So, quick question, whenever you're talking about the off-market stuff and you're talking about comparables, how much emphasis can you put on a comparable if it's pending and not closed versus one that is closed? Can you still use that as a comparable? Let's say we mentioned patio homes. There have been a slew of patio homes that have sold in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A slew of them. But they're obviously not closed and in the system for appraisers to use. Can you pull those pending listings and submit them to the appraiser, submit them to your banker to have them submitted to the appraiser, and will that make a difference?
So I do, because I think that it shows that the demand is there. Does it necessarily make a difference? I don't know, because like to an appraiser, again, the hard part about this business is it's all perspective and personal belief based. If the appraiser can look at that and logically go, okay, 6 of these have sold in the same location within the last month, or are pending within the last month at 225, 250, I think it probably would make sense that this one would also, sell it because the demand is there. And looking back to it like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, seeing what a property sold for, or what comparables sold for then, sometimes I'll dig back 2-3 years if there's not a lot of comparables within the last year to see what things had sold for and how much has the market gone up since then. And then that can kind of give me a ballpark point too, because pricing isn't just about understanding what happens in today's market. It's understanding the history of the market too. And so it's crucial for me to, look at, okay, 2-3 years ago, these were selling for this, and they appraised. Realistically, market's gone up this much, because appraisers do look at that stuff. Sure. So that kind of helps give me a ballpark idea where I could price something, just going back a little bit. And then I think those pendings do hold value because it shows the demand. Did you have something?
I mean, I think pendings are kind of like a current market indicator because they are more recent than actually closed probably. And I've gone to appraiser panels whenever I can. They'll generally say the same thing, but appraisers are kind of like realtors. I mean, they view things kind of their own way, and depending on who you get, you never know. I mean, you could leave a stack of paper there. One may look at them, one may not. So
yeah. I forget. I think it was Emily Baker who told me this. Closed listings are considered reality. Pending listings are dreams because they hope that it goes for that. Or no, active is dreams. I forget what pending is. There's a whole quote to it, and it's really good. I'll have to remember it at some point. I'll get it at some point. I will. I will. Because pendings, they do hold value, and it is a great market indicator for where things are at. But some appraisers will not, take it into consideration until it is closed. It just depends on who you get. Well, it's just like realtors. I mean, like in my neighborhood, there is a 2,700 square foot house built 2 years ago for $480, and like basement homes, new construction basement homes in that neighborhood aren't even selling for $480. So everybody's just got their own perceived value. It will not appraise at that. But like I said, you can put a price on anything.
I don't think this is what we're talking about, but there's actually a new neighborhood going up behind mine, and I've seen the prices.
where?
Behind my house, I'm
Oh, okay.
sorry, in Nixa, Tiffany Highlands. I live in Richmond. It's Lakeview. It's Bustle. Is it Lake? It's not Lakeview because there's no lake. Crestview. Oh, never mind. Sorry. Crap. Okay. Anywho, 1,600 square foot home is $295.
Yeah.
And then the walkouts are $425. Yeah.
No, we are seeing homes hit some of this 200 and over.
But do you think that's gonna appraise? Like when they start? That's what I wondered. You know what I mean? Like, I just looked at that and I was like, holy, I
I
mean,
don't-
they are gonna be well appointed. They're
Right.
gonna be, but a 1,600 square foot home is,
I feel like not only are we seeing like a shift in the market, we're seeing a shift in what people are wanting to buy too. I think more people are putting, and this is my own opinion. I do not know if this is true or not. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this. So like this is just me here. I feel like the shift that we're also experiencing is people don't want massive homes anymore.
right.
People have realized that they don't need 7,000 square
Right.
foot.
If it's planned out correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do feel like we are seeing homes finished nicer
I agree.
with more curb appeal, better landscaping, nicer interior finishes, which is helping justify some of these prices.
But the ones down the road that just got built were like 325.
Yeah.
Like this past summer. So when I moved into my neighborhood last summer, they weren't there and they popped up over spring.
Yeah.
And I think the last one, because they were finishing it, I think it ended at 400 just because of all the products going up. And then these brand new ones are going to be 35% higher than literally the ones that just got built
Yeah.
9 months before.
If they're using the right finishes, I mean, they can draw in the right buyer. I mean, that's very similar to,
And they're on an eighth of an acre.
yeah.
They are tiny.
I mean, that's like the Hickory Hills neighborhood on East Side. Those homes are 2,100 square foot and they're pulling that close to 200 plus, per square foot price as well. So people are just, I think we're seeing that shift into the smaller homes. Do what?
Hold on, Brian.
Think bigger. You live in the Midwest. The Midwest is cheap. Everybody knows that, right? I've lived all over the United States. It's not cheap everywhere at all. Where do you build? Right? So I moved here from New Jersey. Where do you build in New Jersey? You don't, right? It's hard. Guess what? It's hard to build around here now. Find me a place where I can put 30 houses within 30 minutes of Springfield right now and do them all at 2,000 square foot. We're running out of space, right? So what has to happen? The price has got to go up. It's a correction. It's everything. It's not just houses. Look at what it costs you to go out to dinner. It's a correction. The Midwest has been too cheap. We're getting corrections in salary all over the place around here, right? It's a correction. Think of it a little bit differently. Think of it bigger. Look at other areas throughout the US and then realize that we're behind.
And I think when you say correction, hello, I think people think that they're going to make more money. Oh, I'm going to have extra money. No, it's just going to go up at the exact same rate. But I just want to make sure too, because I have that
I agree with that.
underdog feeling that
There's nobody in my
right.
versus, and again, we're talking Webster County, we're talking even more notoriously cheap people between Stratford, Marshfield, all of the people out that direction. Unless you're moving in that way, you were raised that way.
Yeah.
But you walk around, you see the house, and it's like, unless you're not from there, you're not buying that.
Well, right. And, or they're coming in and go, oh my gosh, I want that house, if they're coming in from the outside. But my other part of it is too, and like I said, this is my underdog and wanting the little guy to win as well. A lot of people are being priced out. We talked about that at the beginning of the year, that there's a lot of people being priced out of their first home.
And I think we will continue to see that for a while.
I know.
Because we still, even with the prices where we are right now, we are still seeing people come in from different states that have sold larger properties and have cash.
Yeah.
So the next 2-3 years are going to be interesting to see what happens on a bigger scheme of things.
Right.
Because appraisers are going to have these comps that were paid in cash where they were waived appraisals, but us as agents are still going to use them as comps. and we're
Right.
going to price things. So I mean, we will see a very interesting next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird economy because the business is going to have to. I mean, we've already seen that with Amazon upping that game, and a lot more people are looking at coming in. Yeah, Costco. So, but I mean, $15 an hour isn't going to buy a house. So everything's, it's got to go up from there. So,
When you see $18 an hour at McDonald's, I don't know if you guys have seen that here.
yeah, but that's
in
not buying a house either.
Well, I get that. There was a leadership panel that was done. It was like April or May, and Amy Malia sat here and said the exact same thing that you were saying, Brian, about this. I lived in California. I saw this happen here. It's a price correction. So here's my question: how are you having the conversation? Specifically for me, it's with investors locally about the rise in the cost of multifamily units, right? How are you having those conversations with the locals that Brian was referencing that have, made up their mind that this is some kind of bubble that is going to pop and everything's going to go back to normal? What does that conversation sound like for you, Austin, Rachel, Paulina, any of you guys that are out having those? What does that conversation sound like for you guys?
I mean, at the end of the day, and I mean, maybe I'm too passive. I cannot change a person's perspective on things at all the time. So if they want to believe that there is a bubble, and just truth be told, like any of us in this room, we truly don't know what's going to happen. So because I want to be in this business long term, I don't want to be out of this business in 4 or 5 years. These people that I'm working with, I don't want to tell them wrong information now and then them not come back to me in 5, 6 years. So, I mean, for me, the conversation around stuff is like, I understand that, right now prices are up, and this is what we are seeing in our market right now. We believe that it's a correction because we have been cheap for so long. However, I don't have a crystal ball. So like, I can't predict what the next 2, 3 years looks like. I can just tell you what history has told us and what we know now. And that's all I know. I mean, I'm.
Too late, you missed it. Too late, but that's really, and realistically, it may sound cold and it may sound callous, but that's me. And I promise you that I will just give it to somebody as straight as possible.
Yeah.
What did you expect 5 years ago when you last bought your house? You expected to gain some money or gain some value in this house, right? You're gonna get that value, but so's the other guy. So let's look at it that way.
5 to 7 year trend, and then they go the reversion, the 5 to 7 year trend, and then Don sending out the message that he sent out about the dip in 2008 and 9 has just been corrected the last 2 years.
Yes.
And if you kept on that same trajectory, we'd be exactly where we were. That has made me a diehard advocate for this is the new normal.
Yeah.
If you're not buying now, what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? Chances are that, yeah, you're going to see it come back a little bit, but you're going to wind up paying slightly more than what you would pay now. And then you will have missed out on all that income or that equity, whenever it specifically comes to multifamily homes, that you would have been able to ascertain over the next 3 to 5 years before that dip happens. And you're going to find yourself in the same boat.
No, and that's exactly right, because we probably are priced right about where we should be. Now that we are starting to see some of these price drops, rents are way up here. Rents are crazy high right now. But yeah, I think that's a great way to do it, because it's all about that market history. It's like Gary Keller said, he's never sold a property and lost money on it. If you hold it long enough and you do the right things, maintain it, you're not going to lose money, unless you just put like $500,000 into a $250,000 house and you try to sell it for $1 million. But that's unrealistic. At the same time too, I do think that these people that are coming into the area with cash though are also being smart about what they're willing to pay though at the same time, because I do believe that anybody who has that amount of cash, if they've got any sense.
I believe the real estate agents inflate the value of cash. How about that?
That
How about that how about them apples? I think
That's
that
true,
real
too.
estate agents inflate the value of cash.
Yeah.
Because the bank's cash is just as green as the other dude's cash. So,
Yep.
you know, that's right.
Absolutely. I think it's the appeal of cash to the sellers. Yeah.
Even if it's contingent. There's that chance.
It's reinforced by
Totally
it. It's reinforced by it.
Why don't you just start throwing them?
You can have mine, and then I'll be over getting them.
We're getting sidetracked. No, I think
I don't think everybody.
Well, it doesn't think everybody.
if you were to go through the MLS right now looking for a cash buyer, looking for a cash buyer, you see it all the time.
Have you seen
Mm.
agents? Why are you
It's
saying
in the
that? Why
MLS
is
right
this
now.
different?
It's in the MLS and agent
I'm just
results,
wondering.
in agent remarks,
Agent
looking for
remarks.
cash offers.
I've noticed
all
it
over
more.
the place.
I've noticed it more and more the last couple of
Hey,
months.
is your buyer cash? Whenever I make a phone call, no, they're not cash.
I got-
Oh,
I
they-
gotta
we
ask
got
that
like
question
4
today.
cash offers. Okay, cool. I can still
I
beat that.
asked that.
I think I asked the same question, and I think more so for me. I think more so for me when dealing with with cash from like an agent's perspective, and I'm not saying that I or anybody should do this, and I don't do this. From an agent's perspective, one, I think it makes the agent's job so much easier that some agents are doing the discredit of what you're saying and pushing for that. And I do also think that some agents have pushed so hard the fact that we have so many out-of-state people coming in that sellers are getting this unrealistic expectation that all offers will be cash. Right.
That's what everybody thinks right now.
But I do think that sellers have that unrealistic expectation because I mean, I've even seen agents posting online, we had 10 offers, 8 were cash. So it does put in the mind of the sellers like, oh, okay, maybe I can just.
Well,
get a cash offer.
I checked in for a house, and one of the requirements, and it wasn't just me that he told everybody that you needed to have a gap or tell how you were going to get to the listing price of the house if it didn't appraise.
Mhm. An
So if you
appraisal
were
gap.
doing a conventional loan and you offered 185, but it appraised for 175, are you giving that 10K? So it had to be 185. You know what I mean? So that was the price. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, and there are people who are willing to do that.
Right.
I mean, it just depends on that person. I personally would not always do that depending on the house. If it makes sense.
It was a
yeah.
good house and I lost it and I'm mad, but you know,
If it makes sense, then absolutely.
we got beat by cash.
Yeah, I mean, got so many people moving from out of state here that have that.
This is crazy. It kind of surprised me, and it surprised the seasoned agent too on the other side. But I had a guy who offered cash way over asking price, but the seller ended up taking a lower offer because they didn't want to have to deal with inspections. And my buyer with cash definitely wanted inspections done. So the agent was like, I cannot believe she's doing this. This is crazy. So we lost out with the cash and more
Every
money.
seller
So you don't
has
know.
a different motivation on things. Because like some sellers will take the risk of not doing an inspection and go with a lower offer because they don't want to deal with repairs or because they know something's really wrong and they don't want to fix it. Because I mean, that happens too. Anything else?
So I really liked how you phrase the fact that you're investing your own money. I think that's something that sellers don't recognize is that, they think that they're giving us money. We're giving you our listing, so we're giving you money. They don't realize how much goes into it. And I don't even think they always recognize and appreciate even up to, listing and closing. We did your photos, we paid for your housekeeping, we brought in a lawn, all these little things that go into it. They don't know how much that adds up to. And so that's something that I will use from here on out so that they understand that I am invested in this.
Yeah.
And therefore I'm invested in ensuring that the house sells.
I think it's a huge value add because like I'm very business minded personally. I'm not the hand holding like relationship lovey-dovey type. I would rather just like, hey, here's my opinion. This is what I think is going to happen. This is how we're doing business. I'm investing in you. This is the value that I'm bringing to the table. I don't believe in like, oh, we'll have professional photos done and we'll make it just beautiful and pretty and just, I'm straight to the point. Hey, I'm paying for these photos and I'm investing into selling this house. I think it's super crucial because people, they don't realize that. Like, I truly think some people look and go, oh, well, Keller Williams pays for that. Because they think that we like, yeah, we work, for Keller Williams, like, but we're 1099. Like, they don't understand that we have to pay that stuff out of pocket. And most people don't want to screw people out of money. So if they understand that we're like invested and that we're trying to, because if we don't sell the house, we lose money. So if they know that we're trying and we're doing everything we can, they become more realistic sometimes because they don't want to see us, losing money, and I think it's just super crucial to be honest with them because if I go in and I act like it's not going to be a risk for me, I mean, it's a risk for them to list with me because they don't always know who I am. So if I put up a little bit of risk, it makes the playing field even. I'm glad you like that.
I don't think I've ever heard another agent say that out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 3 years that I've been doing this. And I think that, it's even when you said it, it even kind of hit me because I don't even think that I necessarily always think of it that way. You hear so many people talk about when you're listing someone's house and the price, well, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be that much of a gamble. I mean, business is a gamble, but the part of having a business is minimizing your risk, and thinking of it from that perspective really changes the conversations I'll be having with my clients.
Exactly. And it's getting your business to a predictable success state by minimizing those risks. Because I like when you start doing more and more transactions, understanding what your percentage of listings taken versus listings sold is, because then you can predict, okay, this year I need to set aside or have set X amount of dollars for marketing, knowing that 10, 15, 20% of my listings are probably not going to sell. So I need, and that's if you're doing like 100 listings a year, 200 listings a year, understanding those numbers, because you have to protect that risk of losing that and just making sure that you've got yourself to a predictable state and minimizing those risks. I think that's awesome.
Any other ahas we want to share?
I liked the comparables and the competition. I hadn't really thought about that either as being a value, but I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, taking into consideration, like what I always tell people is if you're going to buy a car and Thompson's has got an Escalade with 50,000 miles on it and fully loaded for $75,000, and I think another car lot, Maze in Aurora has an Escalade that is 50,000 miles, also fully loaded, but priced at 70,000. What car are they going to buy? Same color, same finishes, same everything. What are they going to purchase? Whoever's looking. The car for $5,000 less, because that's what's out there competing with that other car. People always want the best deal.
What else?
You're welcome.
We good? Thanks, Austin. Round of applause for Austin.
I hope people got value out of it. Still recording.